Yeah, please, go ahead.
Good evening, friends. Welcome to this program of paying tributes to the legendary RK Jain. I don't think I need to introduce or talk about RK Jain to anyone who is with us today. They all are ardent fans of RK Jain. And this is not a condolence meeting for RK Jain. It's a celebration of the great man that he was. We have with us today Professor Sridhar Acharyalu, is a former Central Information Commissioner, a distinguished professor of law. He was in the topmost law college, in Nalsar in Hyderabad, an authority on law and obviously on the Right to Information Act, through which he had a great relationship with Mr. RK Jain. Just now he informed us that Mr. RK Jain used to appear before him almost on a daily basis on several cases. Anyway, I'll leave it to the professor to talk about him. Over to you, professor, to initiate this tribute to RK Jain. Professor Sridhar Acharyalu.
Very good evening to all of you. And I'm happy that you said it is a meeting to celebrate achievements of RK Jain. That's a very positive, right expression. I agree with you.
Thank you, Mr. Gururaj. And now Mr. Prashant Bhushan has joined us. Thank you, sir. Mr. Prashant Bhushan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good evening, sir. Welcome, sir. I'm Vijay Kumar from Tax India Online. Sir, just a brief introduction. We have with us for you Mr. Gururaj, sir, is an advocate from Bangalore and a writer for RK Jain. Sir Shailendra Kumar is the editor, founder editor of Tax India Online. We have Mr. Sumesh Arora, a former commissioner in Central Excise and Customs and now an advocate. And we have your friend, Professor Sridhar Acharyalu, the former CIC. And Mr. Sridhar, he's in-house, sir, our consulting editor. We are very happy to have you here, sir. And we have with us, sir, from the family of RK Jain, Miss Garima Jain, his granddaughter, and Mr. Navneet Jain, his son. A very good evening to you, sir. Thanks a lot for coming. And I was just informing Professor Sridhar Acharyalu about a contempt case in the Supreme Court, which you argued for RK Jain. And you argued and won the case so successfully that the Supreme Court Supreme Court allowed a cost of 2 lakhs of rupees to Mr. RK Jain. Anyway, I won't stand between you and our audience. Sir, please share your thoughts on. In the very beginning, I said, sir, this is not a condolence meeting for RK Jain. We are celebrating the great man called RK Jain. Over to you, Mr. Prashant Bhushan.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be asked to speak about Mr. RK Jain. It's, of course, very unfortunate and it's a very sad thing to have lost him at such an early age. I mean, I still think that he was quite young and he had many years of great work ahead of him. I have known him for the last, more than 20 years, during which time he came to me on many issues involving, he was a great RTI activist, but most importantly, I mean, he was a great editor of Excise Law Times, but most importantly, he was a great campaigner for accountability in the excise and in the CGAT institutions. And he kept a very sharp eye out for malpractices occurring within CGAT. And whenever he saw malpractices, he would bring them to the notice of the authorities and often expose them through his editorials, etc. This is a great quality of anybody, and it requires him to be a fearless campaigner and crusader for truth, for justice, and for accountability. And he was indeed a fearless campaigner for all these values. So, in that capacity, he came to me many times pointing out what was going on within CGAT. And ultimately, one of these matters came to a head. Ultimately, when a contempt petition was filed against him in the Supreme Court by the Indirect Tax Practitioners Association, because he had exposed, first he had written to the authorities regarding totally mala fide, illegal transfers, postings, etc., being made of tainted persons within CGAT. When the authorities did not take any action on that, he wrote an editorial exposing that and bringing that to public view. And on that basis, the Indirect Tax Association, Bar Association, filed a contempt petition against him, apparently trying to kowtow to the officers of CGAT whom Mr. Jain had exposed. That matter was finally heard at great length in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave a fantastic judgment, a resounding judgment, in which the court said that Mr. RK Jain has been a long-standing campaigner against illegal, unethical practices going on within CGAT. He has tried his best to bring those illegal, unethical practices to the notice of the higher authorities within the government. When nothing moved, thereafter he has brought it to public view by means of writing an editorial. And therefore he must be regarded as a public whistleblower. You see, whistleblowers are of two kinds. One is whistleblowers within the system who blow the whistle to the higher authorities within that system. And in this case, the Supreme Court recognized the principle of a public whistleblower who blows the whistle about illegal practices or unethical practices that he comes across anywhere, in any department or in any institution, and brings them to the notice of the public at large or to particular lawyers for filing PILs, etc. And they said that such whistleblowers like Mr. RK Jain perform an enormous public duty and a public function, which is to expose such malpractices to the general public. And they not only upheld, they not only applauded him, they not only dismissed that petition of the Indirect Tax Association by imposing exemplary costs of 2 lakhs on them, but they also applauded Mr. Jain for the yeoman service that he had rendered. The Supreme Court applauded him for the yeoman service that he had rendered to the public at large at some risk to himself. Such whistleblowers who blow the whistle on such unethical practices always run a risk of being victimized for their blowing the whistle. And he ran that risk, not only in this case, but many times over his long, illustrious career. And that is why I salute Mr. RK Jain. He was one of those rare species of people who did not fear any kind of retribution on him or impact on him by means of being victimized by judicial members of CGAT, etc. It was this Indirect Tax Association which was trying to kowtow to these members, and which was rightly castigated by the Supreme Court in that judgment. So these are some of the few things that I wanted. The main thing that I wanted to highlight about Mr. RK Jain's career. I mean, as I said, he was a very illustrious editor and long-standing editor of a very important journal about excise, customs, etc. But more than that, he was, and he will be remembered more as a whistleblower within that system, which is a very rare species of people who did so at great risk to himself. So with that, I just salute RK Jain and I offer my heartfelt condolences to his family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your association with him. In fact, that case of the Indirect Tax Bar Association versus RK Jain is a landmark judgment as far as freedom of speech is concerned. And you have shared that the case will live for a long, long time. And we are happy that you have mentioned a great whistleblower like RK Jain, and you yourself are a whistleblower. With your whistle has great resounding effect. And we also have here with Professor, who was also blowing the whistle, sitting in the bench. But while that case was going on, sir, a SESTAT member told me that RK Jain is damaging the reputation of the tribunal. So I told RK Jain, this is what this judge says. Then he asked me, is it the exclusive privilege of the SESTAT member to damage the reputation? Nobody else should do it. Thank you, sir. We are really honored to have you here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Will Garima or Navneet like to ask anything to Mr. Prashant Bhushan? No, maybe you can say your namaskar to him.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste. My heartfelt condolences to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you,
for
sir.
being here, sir.
Thank you for being there with Shri RK Jain and he being there for you, being there for each other. We hope to carry this forward.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that.
Thank you.